James Talerico is John Fetterman 2.0. You heard me right. James Talerico is John Fetterman 2.0. When Fetterman was running in 2013 as a so-called socialist against Dr. Oz, there were plenty of problematic things that went against Fetterman. Most notably was the fact that he chased down a black man under the suspicion that black man was involved in some criminality. Where have you seen and heard that before? That is the exact same action that we would expect anywhere and everywhere in the South and in Republican areas where a white dude automatically assumes that a black dude is a criminal and threatens him with a gun. That's who John Fetterman is. And we should not be surprised that he is making all sorts of overtures and submitting wholly to the Trump agenda, because at his core, Fetterman is no different really from the vast majority of Trump voters. He's a racist through and through. And while Talerico might not be the same level of racist that Fetterman is, Talerico, by his actions, regardless of how well he quotes scripture, is cut from the same cloth. Here's what I mean. When we look at Talerico, he paints himself as some sort of Christian who can quote scripture and has progressive values and is all about taking money out of politics and helping the working class. He says all that, and at the same time, he has taken how much money from Marian Adelson? The same Marian Adelson who has been the top 3 funder of the Trump campaign. So when you have Marian Adelson, who is all about white supremacy, who is all about building a religious ethno-state and funding Republican candidates who are in favor of that, and she's plunking money into Talerico's campaign, what does that tell you? Talerico is gladly taking money from Adelson and is attending events that are sponsored by AIPAC for candidates who are committed to supporting the interests of foreign governments in the Middle East. What does that tell you about Talerico? And if that doesn't convince you, think about what's happening in that campaign. In that campaign, you have political action committees launching attack ad after attack ad against Jasmine Crockett. And a lot of these attack ads have had racial undertones and overtones in them. And what has Talerico said? He's been quiet. Silence means consent, and Talerico remaining silent while all of these attack ads are going against Jasmine Crockett should tell you everything that you need to know. But wait, there's more. During the Texas debate, Talerico was asked, what would you do if articles of impeachment were drawn up against Trump? How would you vote? How would you decide on that? And he dodged the question. Don't believe me? Here's the clip.
While you have been critical of Donald Trump, you have not publicly called for impeachment. If elected to the Senate, under what specific circumstances, if any, would you support impeachment or an impeachment inquiry? And where do you draw the line? You have 60 seconds.
I think the administration has certainly committed impeachable offenses, particularly when it comes to using their public roles to enrich themselves. I will conduct myself in any impeachment proceedings in the United States Senate just as I did in the Texas legislature. So to answer your question, Gromer, people can look at how I conducted myself in those impeachment proceedings. I will pore through the evidence. I will treat it with the utmost seriousness, and I will vote my conscience, and I will do my duty.
And I believe I heard you say something about enriching himself financially, but be specific. What's one thing you would vote to impeach?
Gromer, I'm not going to articulate articles of impeachment here at a political debate.
So in that clip, he's given a softball of a softball. The only correct answer is that if articles of impeachment are drawn up against the Trump regime and Trump himself, and it hits my desk, I'm voting to convict. I'm voting to convict. Those are the only 4 words that Talerico needed to say, but you saw him tap dance like a typical politician and avoid answering the question. You think that all of that Marian Adelson money didn't influence that answer? These are all warning signs that tell you that this guy is not a reliable candidate to put into office. Now, the argument might be, and many white liberals are making this argument, that Talerico, if Texas is to be turned blue, you need a white man to go ahead and help turn that blue. The only problem is that Texas as a state is a majority minority state. And the idea that Democrats need to be running on a platform that caters to the white vote is silly from a historical perspective. The Democrats have not won the majority white vote since the passage of the Civil Rights Act. So why are Democrats beholden to running candidates that are palatable to the white voter? Yes, I get that whites make up the majority of the population, but there's another element of this race that can't be ignored, and that is voter mobilization. How many new voters or unlikely voters are you getting into the electorate with your campaign? You think Milquetoast Talerico is going to attract the brown vote or the Mexican vote or the Latino vote in general and get those people off the sidelines into the race by running a milquetoast campaign that speaks in Republican light talking points? That's going to motivate people to come off the sidelines. It's completely unrealistic. And never mind that the entire Talerico campaign is the poster child for propping up and elevating mediocre white dudes into positions of power. This is a guy that had a cup of coffee in the Texas legislature, and now he's running for statewide office as a senator. Under what criteria, under what merit is he justifying his campaign? By contrast, his Democratic opponent has excelled in the Texas state legislature, has excelled in Congress, is a civil rights attorney, and is an accomplished woman across any number of different criteria that you want to use. And side by side, there should be no comparison, but this is, again, the racism of whites in general and white liberals in particular showing up in an effort to elevate somebody that isn't quite ready for prime time. Now, I have no dog in this race. I'm in Wisconsin, so I can't vote in that election. But if I were a Texan, I'd be voting for Jasmine Crockett because she is clearly the most accomplished legislator on the Democratic side in that primary. If we're going to vote for people on the basis of merit, she's head and shoulders above Talerico from a merit perspective. But we also have to look at ideology. We are under an unprecedented assault when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to civil rights, and who better than a Black woman and civil rights attorney to take up the mantle against this regime. And yet you'll have national talking heads and liberal talking heads all flying and carrying the banner for Talerico, claiming that he is the only one that's electable, when clearly their version of reality doesn't actually speak to the Texas electorate. Talerico isn't going to win the majority white vote. He's not going to come close. Texans have been under Republican rule for 20 to 30 years, and they're still voting Republican and thinking Democrats are the reason why that state is backwards and at the bottom of the barrel. That speaks to the lack of critical thinking skills that exists within the Republican voter base in Texas and also the white voter base in general. All of these red states have the same profile. The majority white population keeps voting in Republicans and then blames Democrats for everything that goes wrong. The dots aren't connecting. So this idea that you construct a campaign designed to capture the disaffected Republican white voter, the disaffected white Trump voter, it sounds like a waste of time to me. When you look at how this race is going to be won, it's going to be won because of turnout. And when you're talking about the general election, if you have Republican light Talerico running against a true Republican, what are Republican voters going to pick? They're going to stick with who they know versus somebody that is running the Democratic banner. Ronald Reagan is famous for saying, we can't be a party of pale pastels. We need to be a party of bold colors. Republicans have been consistently bold in what they stand for. They've been flying the banner of white supremacy and the Klan and the Patriot Front and the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys for the better part of the last 15 years, and they've won because of it. Democrats can't run a race saying, well, we're the diet version of that. Democrats need to adopt the mantle that Jasmine Crockett, AOC, to a lesser degree Bernie Sanders and other progressives have taken on. They need to take a page out of the Mamdani playbook and run unabashedly progressive campaign and connect the dots We've lived under 50 years of Republican policies, and the middle class is non existent as a result. You know who enjoys Republican policies? The billionaire class. Those dots need to be connected, and those dots need to be connected by running a courageous progressive campaign. Texas is different from the vast majority of other southern states because it's a minority majority state. There are a lot of people sitting on the sidelines. And if you think a vanilla Democrat is going to get the job done there, you're deluding yourself. If the goal of the exercise is to get people off the sidelines, you're not going to do it running Talerico. Talerico is Republican light, is Fetterman 2.0. He speaks a good game when it comes to scripture, but when he can't commit to the most important things, and when he stays silent in the face of racism, and when he stays silent when it comes to issues of women's rights and civil rights, you know where he stands. He's closer to being a Fetterman and he's closer to being a Republican than an actual Democrat. So if it were me voting in this race, it'd be Jasmine Crockett all the way, not even close. And if you're going to make the people should vote based on merit, there's no question it should be Crockett over anybody in the field. Hopefully, I'll keep my fingers crossed, and hopefully there's a political earthquake that comes out of the Democratic primaries. But I'll tell you this, a Talerico win in the Democratic primary means a Republican win in the general. That's guaranteed.